Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to the monthly vlog for the month of February 2025. As you probably guessed, there was a name in the opening titles there. You probably saw it a couple of times. I'm here in the beautiful village of Weobley in the county of Herefordshire. We're about 12 miles to the northwest of the city of Hereford, somewhere I was back in November when it felt very different, covering the Christmas light switch on there at Hereford. That seems a long time ago. Here though, it feels very spring-like today. Hope you can join me here in the village of Weobley for another monthly vlog. Look back at the month here on West Country Wanderings and the very best of your comments, as well as telling you quite a bit about this most interesting of villages here in Herefordshire. That's great to see the snowdrops out here behind me here today. This is a beautiful village. We're going to show you the centre of the village there, which is a little rose garden divided into like a triangle of two roads. That was the original marketplace. Now Weobley used to be a town, very prolific town here in Herefordshire, but it declined in importance towards the 18th century and going into the 19th century, and at some point it was decided, after the market closed and the marketplace building, which was demolished in the middle of the 19th century, to downgrade it from a town to a village. But what it hasn't downgraded is the beauty of the village and all of its amazing historical buildings here. The black and white one. There are several black and white villages in Herefordshire. This is one where you can do a tour between all of them. I have previously covered on a previous monthly vlog the village of Pembridge, which isn't that far away from here. There's also another beautiful one on the River Avon. No, not the River Avon, the River Arrow. I knew I'd get that wrong. At a beautiful place called Erdesland, somewhere we will visit on a future video here on West Country Wanderings. Well, before I dive in and tell you some more about this beautiful, beautiful village in Herefordshire and dive in and tell you about what's been happening here on West Country Wanderings during the month of February, I thought I'd share with you a brace, in fact a trio of good news. It's always good to have good news, isn't it? And in case you're not aware of it, you might be aware, you probably are aware actually, that I've done a trio also of videos about the Portishead Railway that's in North Somerset, from the large city of Bristol down to the coastal port and town of North Somerset, which had a railway which closed in 1964. Been a huge campaign for many, many years to get that to reopen. And during last year and early this year, the last one landed in January, I did video walking the entire length from Portishead right into the city centre, looking at aspects of that railway line and the story behind the campaign to reopen it. Fantastic news. Just a couple of weeks ago, there's been news that work will restart this summer, reopening that line. I mean, there isn't a huge amount to do, but I will cover some of it. So once the diggers get in and they start removing all of the bramble and building the station at Portishead and also the one at Pill, hope to cover some of that here on West Country Wanderers. But that's fantastic news. The second bit of good news, also railway related, is in South Gloucestershire. If you live in or around the town of Wootton-under-Edge, which I did a walk this month, more on which a bit in one of my Cotswold series, the village of Charfield is having its station reopened. It's not a reinstatement of the original one because it's on a slightly different site, not utilising the original buildings there. But that is happening. It's happening right now. They've already started work on it, and again I hope to bring you an update video on that, and of course I'll be bringing you a video when that opens, probably in a couple of years time, but we'll certainly do that like I've done previously with Oakhampton and most recently at Ashley Down in North Bristol there on the line up to Filton and Yate. The third piece of good news is following on some bad news that happened on the Stroud Canal. I know a lot of you subscribe to my news and videos about the history and what's happening with the restoration of the Cotswold Canals. That's the Stroud and the Thames and Severn Canal that passes through the middle of Gloucestershire, a bit of Wiltshire as well. And there was a bit of a tragedy because a dredger capsized right in the most awkward place underneath the main, what was the Midland Railway line between Bristol and Birmingham, at a place called the Ocean, just outside the town of Stonehouse there in Gloucestershire. And that dredger was called Patricia. Now, the volunteers from the Cotswold Canals Trust have done a couple of attempts to basically retrieve it, get it out. Unfortunately, both those attempts had failed, but the good news is that the boat was insured. I don't know who the insurer was, but the boat was owned, or the dredger, shall I say, was owned by the Stroud Valley's Canals Company, was insured through them, and their insurance is basically going to sort it all out. I think they got some really high-end dredger companies that deal with like sea trawling, getting things off the bed. Salvage, that's the word I'm looking for. Sea salvage, the experts are getting in. I won't film that as it happens because, well, they don't want people in the area basically, and I don't know the full details. So more news on that you'll be able to find in my Facebook group. So if you want to get some updates on that, I will post them on there, and that will be happening over the next couple of months, so look out for that. Just pop along to Facebook, put in West Country Wanderings, request to join. I'll accept you into the group. As long as you're not a bot or somebody that's a scammer, you'll be fine. And then I'll post updates about what's happening with the salvage of poor Patricia on the bottom of the Stroudwater Canal there. And I will be doing an update on that in the next couple of weeks. I've not kept some once, shall I say. Hopefully by the time I do that update, that will all been sorted, and I'll give you some more news all about that. So yeah, a brace of good news here happening. Well, things that are related to the videos that I've done here on West Country Wanderings. Now, the output this month is a bit reduced. Two reasons for that. It's a shorter month. I'm recording this on the 25th of February. It's a bit earlier. I normally do the monthly vlog around about the 28th, 29th, so make sure I get it out for the 31st. Well, there is no 31st this month, hence the less number of videos. And also the weather has not been great. It hasn't been great at all. Thankfully, it's improved for me to be able to do a monthly vlog, to get it out in plenty of time for the end of February. But there will be a video going out tonight. So I'm recording this on Tuesday the 25th, hoping to publish one of my lost railway walks tonight. Well, we have to tell you what the comments are on that because it hasn't gone out yet. But and there may be another one before this monthly vlog lands as well, just a shorter one. So fingers crossed that will happen as well. But the first video for the month of February on my channel was looking for the remains of the Tavistock line, as in railway line, as in Devon. West Devon we're talking about 12 miles north of the city of Plymouth. And I caught a train with my daughter from the city of Plymouth, and we went up that beautiful branch line heading in the direction of Calstock. But this time, I did Calstock last January, if you want to look at Calstock and see what that's like. This time we got off at a junction there called Beeralston. Now, when I got off the train there at Beeralston, something interesting happened. I bumped into another YouTuber, a gentleman called Mark. Really, really nice to meet you, Mark. Now, Mark has started a YouTube channel. I'll put in the name of the channel now. And he does some drone work. He also does videos. He's done 3 videos. 3 keeps coming up, doesn't it, this month? 3 videos looking at mental health and autism and anxiety, similar to what I've done in the past. I hope to do another one of those later on in the year as well. So yeah, he's got a great channel together, and he's done the most recent one that's looking at the positives, yes, the positives, you heard that right, of anxiety. Yes, there are quite a few. Quite surprisingly, it's well worth a watch, and I'll put a link to that in the description of today's video. But anyway, I was looking at that line, and I was actually quite surprised to see how much work will need to be done to reopen the Tavistock line. It's much, much more work than reopening the Portishead line, because there's been some bridges completely taken out over the years. Well, obviously stupidly, but some of it was to get in hire wagons and lorries into like farmyards, that sort of thing. But it has compromised the line of the railway. But it still can be done, but it will take obviously a lot longer. Also, we had a look around the village of Beeralston, had some great comments on that, including one from Ron, who runs a channel called Parkinson's Walks, which has been going, I think now, about 8 or 9 years. A great channel, particularly if you like my Lost Railway Walk series and videos such as the one looking at the Tavistock line there. Ron writes, "My sort of explorer in my favourite county, Devon. A lot of work to restore the line. I wonder how long it will take compared to how long it took to build originally." That's a very good point, and I think probably much longer, probably 2 or 3 times longer than it took the line to be built. I think it was probably done over probably about 3 or 4 years. It's probably going to take a lot longer to get that to reopen, I fear. Also had a great comment from Donna about that video. It was lovely seeing the area and the remains of the railway. Love that one tunnel with all the vines hanging from it. Good point about sticking to the paths. Yes, I made a point about that area there, the woods. There are various paths through the woods there, but if you go off them, you could suddenly come up across a mine shaft that's not been capped. So yeah, be warned about that. So thanks for reminding us on that, Donna. And enjoyed seeing the Leaning Tower. Yeah, the Leaning Tower of the former, it was to do with an arsenic mine there, just on the banks of the Tamar. Thanks very much to Donna. Donna also runs her own channel, based in Canada. Also with her, I think it's her husband runs it as well. And I'll link to his channel in the description of today's video. So thank you, Donna, and thank you, Ron, Parkinson's Walks, for that video. Now, what about the rest of this village? Now, Weobley had two castles. One of them wasn't an actual castle. It was called Garnstone Castle. Part of Garnstone Hall was actually designed by the famous designer. You'll know this name, particularly if you've been to the city of Bath, John Nash. Why was he interested in this very quiet, very rural corner of northwest Herefordshire? Well, it's because the Marquis of Bath was very interested in this area earlier on in the 18th century. So he designed that. Sadly, though, it was demolished around about 1959. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a photo of it. However, somewhere, hopefully I'll be able to look later in the video, as remains of Weobley's own castle, which dates from the First English Civil War. That was known as the Anarchy. Yes, King Stephen and all that. Matilda, which I did a separate video all about. It was done around that time, perhaps a little bit earlier. There's no brickwork remains there, but we should be able to see part of the outline of the fortification. So keep on watching, see if we can, I can't promise, but see if we can have a look at that later in today's video. The village lies in the valley of the Marl Brook. Now, the Marl Brook is a tributary, I think perhaps a sub-tributary of the aforementioned River Arrow, yes, Arrow, not Avon, that goes through some of the other black and white villages here in Herefordshire. Also, by that rose garden there is a fantastic sculpture which was put there in 2001 by Polish-born but Herefordshire resident Weobley Patel. I'll put the spelling of his name now, and we've come across a couple of his before in my previous videos, once in Ross-on-Wye, also here in Herefordshire to the south of the county, and also in Great Malvern just over the border in Worcestershire. Amazing design, really clever sculpture there, really enhances that rose garden, and it's a nice feature for the heart of the village here. So I've just come round to the amazing church here. In fact, the church is the oldest building here in Weobley. Weobley is surrounded by amazing black and white cottages and more substantial buildings than that, including an incredible farmhouse. I don't be able to get down to there. I think it's called the Lay. But this actually dates from Norman times, although there was significant expansion to it in the 13th century, including the amazing bell tower. Just to do a zoom shot of that now. And there was additions also in the 20th century. It dates from Roger de Lacy. The de Lacy is a family you'll come across a lot here in Herefordshire name. It comes up all the time in the histories of the towns and villages of Herefordshire. So it was part of the manor of the de Lacy family, how it was founded here. But it's an incredible and amazing building which dominates the village. Just really, well, as you can see by the size of it there, but there's really nice sounding bells there from the bell tower on the top. Well, that sun is starting to warm up quite nicely now, though the wind is a little bit keen, but I'm not complaining. This is great compared to most of the days we've had in February. This is, yeah, great. The second video this month was one in my Cotswold Walk series, and it was in the southern part of the Cotswolds from the town of Whitton-under-Edge, and it followed a valley. I think it was called Tiley. We'll come on to that in a minute because it's mentioned in the comment. But it was such an enjoyable walk. Now, often I get requests that people just want acoustic sounds. They don't want music, they just want natural sounds. Unfortunately, we live in an ever-increasing and ever-noisy world, which makes just recording natural sounds like birds and streams and nothing else away from planes, particularly traffic and people, it makes it really difficult. So sometimes you do have to overdub music. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of making these videos, and other creators will come across the same problem. But making that video was an absolute delight. just using my ordinary shotgun mic, and the sounds it pick up, but it was just so quiet. There was no distractions at all in it. Absolute pleasure to make. I had a great comment on that video from a lady called Liz Child. Thank you very much for your comment, Liz. And she writes, "This is where I grew up. You've reminded me of all my wonderful childhood explores in Tiny Bottom." Yes, that was her name, Tiny Bottom. Highly recommend it if you're ever in the Wootton Under Edge area even of the Cotswolds. Golden Knoll is my most favourite place. Now, if you remember in that video, I said that there was a woodland, and just the back of that woodland, there's like a headland that sticks out above the town with the name Golden Knoll, and it really does look like it's got a golden texture to it. Yeah, it was a great walk. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Before we go on to the next video though, I just wanted to talk about last month's vlog, which came from the town of Devizes in Wiltshire there, and I also had a look at the Kyne locks, that amazing flight of locks there on the Kennet and Avon Canal. Now, a week after I made that monthly vlog, the Canals and River Trust had an open day where you could actually go inside one of those locks, which I booked a ticket and was getting ready to go and do and film a video for you. Unfortunately, the weather had other ideas. It was appalling. However, there are two intrepid souls, also YouTube creators. One of them is called Paul Whitewick, the other one called Stephen Court above the cut. He does his channel looking at drone footage from canals and particularly focusing on the restoration thereof. They were there on that day, and I think they either have put a video out about it or they're going to be putting a video about it imminently, so have a look for that. Now, also coming up in March on the Cotswold Canals Trust, they got an open day in one of their locks on the Stroud Water at Dock Lock, so I've booked to go and visit that, so hopefully I'll be able to do a video from there at the Stroud Water looking at the restoration of the lock on that. I'm now walking up the lane that leads up to the castle. Back there in a straight line is the High Street at Weobley, taking you down to the church and the churchyard where I was filming earlier. This bit here is the moat of the castle, but only the bailey really survives, which is just the other side. Now, there is an interpretive board back down there and it says contrary to my online notes that it dates from the Norman times, but as I say, it was substantially used during the First English War, the anarchy, around 1170, I think. I'll have to check that and put it in, but it's 11 something or other, about 100 years before, or after, should I say, Norman days. But yeah, you've got a part of the Bailey here. I'll just show that to you now. But yeah, it's delightful high street down there. It's a bit busy to film though, because you've got cars on both sides. It does have a bus service here, and I'll talk to you in a moment about the railway station, or rather lack of one here. This is the Bailey here at Weobley Castle. Not as substantial as the one we saw the other day, just a few weeks ago, at Plympton in Devon, of course. But on the interpretive board there is an illustration of what it may have looked like in the 14th century when it was lived in. I think it was lived in towards the end of the 1500s. And then, of course, it fell into ruin and decay. And just the outline that you see here today. So you have to have a lot of imagination to imagine what it looked like when it was a substantial castle here. Of course, here we're not far from the Welsh borders, and that was one of the reasons why it's kept around. Now, the origins of the castle, very similar to the church. Yes, it's the de Lacy family again, which, as I say, keep cropping up here in the county of Herefordshire. Well, I've just come around the other side of the Bailey here at the castle at Weobley, and that over there is Garnstone Park. At one time, that was the situation of the Garnstone Castle, which, as you know, got demolished. I think it was around about the 1950s. There's no trace there, but it's a beautiful park and remains so, and a fitting backdrop to the castle that was much earlier, and probably they had viewpoints from the windows of the newer castle looking across and shore. Just a beautiful backdrop here with the castle looking down towards the village itself, which would have been, as I say, a town at one time. And one of the industries, yes, I did read that right, industries in the town was glove making. And another one is brewery. Apparently Weobley beer is popular in Wales. Wales only being a few miles over the border there. But I think I'm not sure whether it is popular these days, but I understand that a micro brewery has sprung up again here in Weobley. If you've ever tried that, please drop a comment below. I'd be really delighted to hear from you. The next video this month was one back in my canal series, and this time I headed to the town of Swindon, large conurbation, which isn't actually in officially Wiltshire because it's a separate unitary authority, you know what I mean. But anyway, I returned to there to look at the developments on that site there, particularly the site of where potentially there could be a lot of work going on at North Star and the Oasis Leisure Centre development, which could possibly infringe over onto the line of the North Wilts Canal, which is a linking canal between the Wilts and Berks and Town Centre up to the Cotswold Canals at Latton on the Thames and Severn. Hopefully that won't happen. There was, about a week later, about 50 people that turned out to make their voices known that they didn't want that development spoiling that in any way, shape or form. But yeah, it was really good to have a look at it again. The works has been taking place in and around the town of Swindon. I had a great comment on that video from David Berlani, who lives in Spain. Hi David, I hope you're well. And he writes, a good continuation of previous trips there. Some real opportunities for Swindon in the North Wales parts. Let's hope something useful can come of it and maintain the possibility of that canal in the future. I certainly hope so too, David. Some interesting towpath reinforcement was in action. I wasn't until I saw that aqueduct I realised how high up the canal is there. Yes, as it passes underneath the Skew Bridge, which carried the Midland and South Western Junction Railway from the town of Cheltenham to the port of Southampton, well, specifically Andover in Hampshire, and then it shared tracks, didn't it? It is on quite a bit of an embankment, and there is a substantial aqueduct underneath. Thanks very much for your comment, David. The next video was a return to Malvern Hills, number 4. Unfortunately, unlike the previous 3, Malvern is about 20 miles or so to the east of where I currently am, here in Weobley, in Herefordshire. But Malvern is, well, I just love that place, I really, really do. But unfortunately this time, it was very, very misty. I could barely see the hand over my face. And even though I had an app on my phone showing me GPS exactly where I was, it was still very, very disorientated because you couldn't see hither or thither from one side of the hill to the next. I had a great comment on that video from Diana. Hi Diana, it was great to hear from you. She writes, thank you for taking us on a lovely atmospheric walk. It was so concerning that mist can be so disorientating. It really is. There was so much to see and do there. Yes, we will be back to the Malverns again before too long, perhaps in the summer or the autumn, and hopefully it will be mist-free next time I return. I then caught the train down to East Devon, specifically the city of Exeter, and thence onto a branch line train to the seaside resort of Exmouth and onto a bus at Budleigh Salterton. After I got off the bus, about literally 30 seconds later, I was making our way to the town centre and the beach. And a gentleman stopped me. No, it wasn't a police officer. A gentleman stopped me and recognised me. He was a subscriber to the channel. Really nice to meet you. And he also writes the comment for that particular video as well. It goes under the pseudonym of Arthur Nee. I think Arthur Nee was a children's writer, not sure, but I think he was. He writes, hello Paul, it was nice to have the opportunity to exchange a few words with you in Budleigh Salterton the other day when I bumped into you. The prayer cairn you showed grew very quickly during lockdown as people wrote messages of loss for relatives who sadly succumbed to the COVID virus. Yes, so the prayer cairn was actually on the beach then. I think it was a Methodist minister's idea to have that. Actually pre-pandemic, but it grew substantially during those times. And there must be hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 or more flat pebbles on that with inscriptions to relatives that people have lost for one reason or another. Thanks very much, Arthur, and it was really nice to meet you as well. And I will be back in the East Devon area featuring Sidmouth and around the coast there. Just seeing Ladram Bay for the first time was just absolutely amazing and breathtaking. Now, if you watch the channel West Country Wanderings regularly, you know I like to drop in short bites. These aren't YouTube shorts, the long format, you know, it's really tall, isn't it? Portrait format. Not one of those, it's just a shorter length video. And sometimes they're just short bites, or they're short bite photography ones focusing on images that I've taken of a particular area, sometimes with music, sometimes narration. And this one was focusing on the lesser known village of Kingswood in Gloucestershire, but close to the South Gloucestershire border, and also not that far away from the South Gloucestershire town of Kingswood, which is just to the east of the city of Bristol. I had a great comment on that from Nicola, who actually grew up in Kingswood in South Gloucestershire, not the village that I featured in the video. And she writes, I grew up in Kingswood, South Gloss. I've never been to Kingswood in Gloucestershire. It's fair to say they are very different, very interesting. Thank you, Nicola. I've actually been to Kingswood in South Gloucestershire. Now, Kingswood there is a former mining town. It actually has a bit of a feel to some of the towns in the Forest of Dean because of the mining community, although because it's so close, I mean very close, I think the end of the high street takes you into the city of Bristol. It has a much more of an urban feel. Great comment, Nicola. Thanks very much. The next video this month was Eber Gorge, and it was a collab with Darren from the channel Somerset Man Walking. I'll link to his channel in the description of today's video. And he does videos all over Somerset, really much starting with the same aims of starting YouTube that I did back 4 years ago. I did actually celebrate my 4th birthday this month, and it was actually the day I made that video was the 4th birthday of West Country Wandering, so thanks for your thanks there, Darren, as well. But we had a good walk around Eber Gorge, which is near the city of Wells. Beautiful place, stunning gorge, much quieter than Cheddar. So if you like Cheddar but you don't want the crowds, I highly recommend Eber. It's not as big, but it is a lot of drama there and beautiful scenery, but unfortunately a bit like the Malverns, again it was a bit misty, but I thoroughly enjoyed making that video. And Darren did his own video, again I'll link to his video about Eber Gorge in the description of today's video. A fascinating area and place, I really enjoyed that. Had a great comment on that video too from Jesse, who runs his own channel called Grandays Out. I've not heard of Eber Gorge. It is actually a little tricky to find, so I highly recommend using a map. There's no signpost to it, so you need to go into the city of Wells, find the brown tourist signs to Wookey Hole, follow the road out of the city towards Wookey Hole, which is about a couple of miles, and then go all the way through the village, going past the Wookey Hole tourist car parks. Keep going, you'll come to a fork in the road. Take the right-hand one that takes you up the hill. You'll see a car park on the right. That's where it is. Not heard of Weobley Gorge before. I love hearing it described as Cheddar Gorge without the tourists. Yeah, it's so apt. That was Darren's description of it. This kind of collab works well. You both seem at ease, and fun you're having is pouring out of the screen. Please do more. Yes, myself and Darren and myself and Louise have both got collabs planned coming up later this year, for look out for those. And a couple more for this month. One in my railway series, which is a return to Didcot. It was the third time I've been to, not Didcot, the town in Oxfordshire, but the railway centre there, right next to the railway station in the centre of that triangle. It's an amazing place. I highly recommend it. I didn't do much talking in that one. I thought, well, I just want to show you what it's like there, a day's trip to Didcot Railway Centre. And again, I had a great comment on that from Philip Pankhurst, who I do think lives in this part of the world here in Herefordshire. A really enjoyable all-action look at Didcot Railway Centre. The Westminster Abbey of the GWR. I think that's a brilliant description there, Philip. Good to see that the historic coaching stock is now undercover. All three of our children, now in their 40s, have grazed their knees and got filthy over the years at Didcot. Great to see it's still possible. Thanks very much for that brilliant comment there, Philip. And finally for this month is Lost Railway Walks number 20. I can't believe I've got up to 20 already. And that's a walk in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire. From the town of, well, not the town actually, no, from the village of Park End to the town of Colford, following the railway line there. Well, I can't give you any comments on that because it hasn't yet been published. It's uploading as I speak and film this, and it'll be, by the time I get home, I should be able to hit the button and publish it, so that'll go out. I'll read the comments about that in March's vlog, wherever that shall be, somewhere in the wider West Country Wanderings region. I head over there now to close the video off, back to the churchyard. Before I do that though, just to tell you about the village and railway station. Yeah, it's never had a railway station here. There is a bus. I think it's about 11 buses a day. I've forgotten the name of the bus company. I'll drop it. I always like to cover public transport if you want to come here by public transport. So you'll need to catch a train to Hereford and then a bus. And I'll put the description of the bus company, and there's, I say, about 11 or 12 a day, which take you right into the high street centre of the village here. There is another bus to Leominster, but I think there's only about runs about 3 times a week. So yeah, you're best coming via Hereford if you want to do it that way. I drove here today. So I much prefer using public transport, but it was more convenient for me to get driving rather than using train and bus. It would be a long-winded way for me to do it that way. But yeah, the nearest station I think was a place called Monington or Mornington. It's one of the two. I'll put it in below because there's a, no, I think it's Mornington because there's a Monington on Wye. So it's not on the River Wye. There's a village about 6 miles from here which was on the line between Hereford heading over towards the Welsh town of Hay on Wye. There was a station there, of course that closed, Beeching, and now of course nearest railway station is Hereford itself. So yeah, this is a very kind of railway free area, this part of Herefordshire. But I do hope to do, it probably won't be a Lost Railway Walk, but I hope to look at the Golden Valley line. That's not the Golden Valley in Gloucestershire, but the Golden Valley that's between Hay on Wye and, well, just above the town of Abergavenny. I think it joins the line, the Welsh Marches line at Pontrillus. So there's lots to see on that. So it's not a walk you can actually do continuously, but one you can kind of drive a car and see features of it. So hopefully we hope to feature that in the future too. Now before I go today, just like to mention a couple of things that will be coming up. Well, the aforementioned docklock, which I mentioned earlier in the video on the Stroud Water, be having a look at that. I also want to get along to part of the Wilton Barks, which we've not covered before, around a village called Uffington, which is near the Berkshire border. And they've done a lot of restoration around Uffington recently, so hopefully I'll be able to bring you that, which will be Wilton Barks number 11. I do hope to bring you another heritage line. We had one this month, of course, with Didcot Railway Centre, but do hope to bring you another one of those, and another Cotswold Walk, and hopefully back on the Geo Parkway, as well as return to either Devon or Cornwall. We did have Devon this month, but we haven't done Cornwall yet. Maybe Cornwall, can't promise it because obviously it's further for me to travel and it's logistically more difficult, but fingers crossed we may be able to bring you something on that. So lots happening, others which I have planned, others which are in the process of being planned, which I can't mention yet, but there'll be a variety of content coming up in March here on West Country Wanderings. And I'd just like to thank you very much for all your comments, your subscribes, your likes and your shares of my videos this month. I really do appreciate it. It's actually been quite a busy month in terms of number of views. In terms of number of videos, it hasn't, but number of views overall, it most certainly has. And I'd like to thank you very much for that indeed. It just really helps the channel to grow, be able to produce more videos for you as well. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on West Country Wanderings again very soon. All the best for now. Take care. Bye bye.